Got it.
Welcome to Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Larry Mazza. What's up, Larry?
Everything's good. It's been a long time. This part two from last week.
Yeah, man.
Good to
Thank you.
see.
I appreciate you joining me again. And we're gonna talk about we discussed because he helped the government quite a bit in his earlier years. And it's kind of hard to even comprehend if the bosses or anybody didn't know about any of this stuff.
Well, it went on 30 years. Okay, that's public knowledge now. And a lot of different pieces of information came out after it was exposed that he was an informant all those years. So previously, before it was exposed, there's a lot of talk now that others knew about it. And I'm not the only one that heard it firsthand. I heard it from Alley Boy that him and his father knew for 20 years. Now I'm hearing it from other people that are in contact that they heard it. It's hearsay, but it's definitely evident that he's bad. So it's more than hearsay. They might have had some info on it, but more and more people it's coming out had an idea and they were high up. It's hard to do that for that long. And people always questioned how he could get away with the things he was doing. When a couple of guys in the family got pinched for a bank burglary that I was on also. The three guys that got caught, one of them's in the picture there, right above my hand there, Joe Brewster. He was one of the three guys to get pinched along with Bobby Zam and Carmine Sessa. And Greg had his lawyers negotiate the deal, and not one of the three well-known wise guys under Greg Scarpa for decades did a day in prison. They were very important men to him. They had big Shylock books. So somehow or another, he persuaded the government to just give them 2 years probation. And if the bank heist was successful, we would have gotten like 2 or 3 million each. And this is back in 1982. So, yeah, and maybe more. That was like a minimum, 2 to 3 million split, 8 ways, including the family would have had an end. There was about 8 of us on it. So that plus all the hits he did, and got away with. When he got pinched for credit cards, he spent 4 hours in the office in the World Trade Center. I'm thinking it's the Secret Service office. Find out later it's the FBI office. They had nothing to do with the pinch. Why was he there? Again, I'm a kid. I was a little naive. I didn't really think anything about it. He spent 4 hours and then walked out. Didn't hear anything about bail. Didn't hear anything about returning to court. And me and Linda picked him up. Took him home. And he said it's all going to be worked out. Lawyers or whatever. I'm thinking this guy is just brilliant. He's the biggest, smartest mob guy ever. And he was up there with them, regardless of what he was smart and he knew how to play, obviously deviously smart. And so everybody starts looking at those things. His own son questioned it. How the hell did he get away with all that? How, when the big pinch came on the drugs, when Greg Jr. got into the drugs, and it's in my book, it just went rampant with that business. All the cameras, all the films had all the guys going to Greg's house, Big Greg's house. It was known that Big Greg was the boss of that crew. Everybody knew it. The government knew it. Everybody knew it. So how come when the pinches came down, he's the only one that didn't get pinched? His son gets pinched, charged as a kingpin, which really the father was the kingpin. And the kid took the hit. So think about that. How is he not on the head of the indictment? So again, nobody can really question it. But here's something Gregory told me. It's heartbreaking to hear. Heartbreaking. He's on a visit in Lewisburg. Greg goes to see him. I was there, but we would always walk to the candy machine, me and Jimmy, give the father and son some privacy to talk for 5 minutes. Then we come back. Then we go get coffee. Not the whole time, but just to give him some time. And in that conversation, Greg told me he leaned up close to his father and he says, it's amazing how you skirted this. He says, thank God you escaped this. like he's happy his father escaped. You know what the father did? He says, I don't know anything about it. He was actually thinking Gregory might have been trying to get him to talk. I don't know nothing about that. So that's, but you know what? And Greg Jr. said it, not me. He said, it takes one to know one. His mind knew how, an informant could, or a guy that's getting ready to turn and start asking questions. And that's heartbreaking because Gregory did 35 years. About 14 of them in the hole, never flipped, never made a deal with the government outside of the terrorism. And that's another thing we could talk about. He's no rat. That if you call him anything you want but that, for giving
he's trying to protect the United States. We're
innocent, right. And it's been done over and over in this country. Luciano did it. Meyer Lansky did it. Meyer Lansky did it with the Jews, with the Germans, when they were sending in some kind of communists back in the 40s and 50s. They stepped up big to help there. Luciano helped World War II at the ports. His influence to stop what was coming in, control the ports and things like that. And he got out of jail for helping.
Did you guys ever hear about him trying to help at all, like with that Ku Klux Klan thing when he went down there to kidnap the guy? Did you ever even hear about that?
No, I think that was the initial thing that brought him in. They had to find somebody that was fearless, that would go, and just,
what story did you hear? And like after,
I didn't hear anything until after.
Yeah, after. What story did you hear after?
That he was bad, and that story came out. And then, I was actually talking to one of the agents about it, and he told me his exact words were, he did unspeakable things to them to get this information. Everybody thinks he just went to that storekeeper and he grabbed one guy. It took like 3 guys, maybe torture, from what they said to me. And then other things I read sort of makes that real, until they led him to this guy who owned the TV or appliance store and actually disposed of the bodies. So that was
the
smart.
Civil rights workers.
Yeah, they probably, civil rights workers, right. So all that, and then he told me things that only somebody close or knowledgeable about the government could say and be right on. He was right. You're too young probably to remember when Bill Clinton was running for president against Bush.
I was really young at the time. It was in the early 80s, right?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. George Bush, the father, just won the Desert Storm War.
I do remember that was around the 90s, early 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a hero. And he was like a 40-1 favorite to get reelected. The summer before the election, things started changing a little bit. Like, that read my lips, no more taxes. And then he raised taxes and little things started happening. But a 40-1 favorite, just months before the election. As that summer's coming to an end, I remember sitting on the couch with Greg watching the news, and we saw the elections talk, and it comes up something about Bill Clinton. And he points to him, he tells me, he's 40-1 underdog. He says, that's our next president right there, Bill Clinton. And I'm saying to myself, I'm in the booking business. I know 40-1 is tough, and usually the odds makers have that right. By election day, it was pick'em. It was even money. Something happened within the government it's like insider trading. Somebody knew. Yeah. So in hindsight, I brought this up. I tell people this all the time now, because hindsight's 20/20. But how did he know back then? Another thing he told me, the Joe Colombo hit, where they shot Joe Colombo. There's things that the public don't know. Like the guy Chubby, who was a bodyguard for Joe Colombo. Soon as the black guy shot Joe Colombo, there's cops all around. Cops everywhere. Okay? He pulls out a gun, he shoots the black guy that shot Joe Colombo. And he was literally escorted out. His men just walked, they all walked him out. The cops didn't get involved. There had to be feds there. Nobody got involved. Okay. And he never gets arrested for that. Less than a week later, I think in a few days, for his heroic effort, they straightened him out. Chubby wasn't even a wise guy. He was there as a bodyguard. But because of what he did, he got made a few days later.
Why do you think they killed him right away? Do you think they killed him right away to keep him quiet?
Well, no, I think he did it as a reaction protecting his boss. Maybe the first shot, hopefully he didn't kill him on the first shot and to stop him from shooting more. Or what I'm about to tell you now, you can make your own decision. Greg's exact words to me were the government was behind that. Now think about it. If you know the story, he was getting very powerful, Joe Colombo, and he was making the Civil Rights League very, very strong. And they didn't like that. They didn't want him. They didn't want this. They feared the Italian Civil Rights League getting too strong because you had the mafia ready or the mob. I shouldn't use that word. Cosa Nostra. You had that, which was strong, and it was a government within the government. But now imagine you have millions of Italian people backing Cosa Nostra and making it even think about it. So he told me that. Whether people could say I'm making it up, I don't really care because there's no reason to make it up. But those were his exact words to me. The government was behind that. And he didn't say it like it's my opinion. I think the government, he said it like he knew in his head, but he has a reason for knowing in his head. And, again, in hindsight, who knows? Maybe that's true, but there was a lot of things that happened and a lot of things, like I said, again, in hindsight that we talk about now. Gregory Jr. had a great story to tell me. Guy comes into the club with a wheelbarrow or not a wheelbarrow, like a wine barrel type of thing, full of emeralds. I was going to say gems, but they were emeralds. Now, emeralds aren't right off the bat very, very expensive. You got to find good ones. You got to really polish them or refine them, whatever. I'm not a jeweler, but I knew there's something. So even though there was so many of them, he offered the guy $50,000 for the barrel, and it was a Greg Jr.'s friend from Staten Island. He says, "No, I think I could get more. I'm going to look somewhere else." Oh, well, he probably didn't say that. He says, "No, I don't know. Well, let me think about it." Whatever he said. He leaves with the emeralds. The very next day, the feds are at this guy's house. He gets arrested and they take the emeralds.
Where'd he get them from? Do you know?
I don't know. But so Gregory, he told me just recently, we talk about this stuff all. He says, I could never say it to my father, but I was wondering, did he make the call? I mean, how many people knew? He went wherever he got him. He brought him right to there and left. The next day, he gets pinched with the emeralds.
That's wild.
Yeah. So, but nobody was going to tell Greg, would you,
Next thing you know, he has emerald rings and shit, right?
Yeah. He might have just moved it along. Where the feds might have took it and gave it to him to sell. They used to do that with cigarettes. My Uncle Albie used to do the cigarette runs from the South. And it was lucrative. I mean, he would go down, and originally they went with trucks, but then they started looking for these trucks. So they went with cars that were gutted, where you just filled the whole car up with cigarettes, from the trunk to the driver's seat, and think about the old caddies back in the day, big cars, you could get
huge.
Right. And it was more, you looked like you were just driving in 95 traffic. You weren't, but what they started doing was, because now they couldn't target these trucks, the feds and the local police, they made a deal with the people who were selling the cigarettes. They said, make the sale. So let's just say it was 1,000 cartons. They were getting the cartons for again, you're talking in the 70s, for $1.50 a carton. They were bringing them back to New York and selling them for maybe $8 a carton or $10 a carton. Okay. So 1,000 cartons is $15K. They would pay the guy in the store $15,000. The cops said you could keep the money. Tell us where the cars. They would get the cars, and then we'll return the cigarettes to you to resell. So now that guy was making the score.
You're selling it twice. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's, I'm saying they could have possibly did something like that with Greg. Give us the and we'll give him back to you, and you can go get rid of him, whatever. Yeah. So, yeah.
Was there any other times where he would come back with information like this guy's no good, and you're like, question, how do you know this? Like what?
Several. During the war, especially. I'll get to that later on. But I had a collision shop, and my partner disappeared. To this day, I don't know what happened to him, whether he got fed up, he, meaning Greg, or the guy got scared enough to take off. But he's disappeared. He's missing. His brother comes to see me, and I see him out there, and Greg calls me in the back room real quick. And he says, don't get any conversations with that guy. So I said, all right. I said, yeah. But the truth is, I was a little reluctant too, because I knew Eli was missing.
Yeah.
So I was already reluctant. I still don't know to this day what the whole situation was. But he takes me into the diner next door, and we're sitting down. He's talking about Eli. He says, Eli was so scared. I said, what's he scared of? We were partners in a collision shop. Now I'm playing dumb. He says, well, that time you hit him. So what are you talking about? You got the wrong guy. I never raised my hands to your brother. I never hit a person in my life. I said, I'm not that type of guy. He said, he laughed like he caught on. I shouldn't be saying that. Then he tried a few more things, talking about it. We know where Eli is, this and that. I said, no, I wish I did, because my collision shop's going down the tubes now. So now he walks. He's a cab driver. He walks to the corner, turns left. I come up behind him, and I'm looking around the building, because I want to watch where he's going without him seeing me. He probably walked 2 blocks. Where was he walking to? His office and his place was literally 5 miles away, So he knew something there. Maybe because, they knew Greg did it and he was gone. But that was a time, then there was, different, well, how about killing a guy right in the club and carrying him out in broad daylight in a Persian rug?
Yeah, like when he shoots the guy, is there people around that can hear that shot? Are you guys worried about the cops coming?
Yeah, and but never worried about any of that. Beatings were one thing, but that's different than taking somebody's life, killing somebody right there and carrying him out in broad daylight. A beating's a beating, you could, whatever. But during the war, he was getting all the information. Now we knew he had some kind of connection. We didn't know if it was somebody on the other side or somebody in law enforcement, but even then, we're not. And we started asking, you got to let us know who this is in case something goes wrong, or in case something happens to you. Especially he had the AIDS and he wasn't going to be around too much longer, we thought. And he would laugh, in good time, I'll let you know when the time is right. So we got the code, the secret code for the scanner that only the task force and the FBI should have had. Nobody else gets that. It's like picking 5 numbers out of the air. That's the random code. They just put 5 numbers together. You can't figure that out. So he got that code. We got information where our enemies were constantly, and one of them backfired because it was the wrong address. Okay, and we went to that address, and it was wrong. So he called up, who turns out to be the FBI agent DeVecchio,